Hey guys, what's up and welcome to Zero Reviews Tech. It's been 6 months since I've been so excited for a new cell phone, and it's finally here, the Elephone U / Elephone U Pro. Check it out, it's so awesome. Alright, I know literally everybody in the entire world is so excited by the Elephone S9 as well. Well, okay, it's not called the Elephone S9 anymore, it's now officially called the Elephone U and Elephone U Pro, which is the new name for the Elephone S9. And if you want to know more info about the phone, click on the link in the description below. Elephone's official reasoning for changing from the S9 to the Elephone U is to remind people that they have a curved, flexible AMOLED display, which we will talk about later. But I suspect that Samsung probably told Elephone to stop using the S9 as a name or get sued into oblivion by Samsung's team of lawyers. I mean, Samsung's lawyer team is probably bigger than the entire Elephone company, so Elephone does not want to get on their bad side. I will have an unboxing video and review video coming up real soon, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss a video when it's uploaded to the channel. So I spent enough time sidetracking, let's talk about the Elephone U and U Pro. There will be two versions of the Elephone U, the cheaper version which will use the Mediatek Helio P23 processor, and the more expensive version which will use a Snapdragon 660 processor, and oh man, I am so excited for the Pro version. Let me give you the full specs for both phones before we continue. The Elephone U will have the Mediatek Helio P23 processor, a 6-inch 2K AMOLED display, and before you jump down my throat saying it's not 2K, don't worry, I will explain in the display section below. There is also up to 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, Android 7.1 Nougat, 3 13-megapixel cameras, and a 3620 mAh battery. The Elephone U Pro will have the Snapdragon 660 processor, the same 6-inch 2K AMOLED display as the cheaper Elephone U, and up to 6 gigabytes of RAM, the 128 gigabytes of storage, Android 8.0 Oreo, 3 13-megapixel cameras, and a slightly smaller 3550 mAh battery also. Oh, and it also has NFC and wireless charging, which are both pretty awesome and rare in Chinese phones. So what do you think? Can the Elephone U and the Elephone U Pro live up to the hype? Let me know in the comments down below. So let's go through the phone step by step. First is build quality. Even though I'm super pumped about the phone, I'm actually not too happy with the materials Elephone is using. The frame of the phone will be aluminum, and that's okay. Elephone has had some pretty good manufacturing practices. However, they say that the back of the phone will be glass with that Lumia look, and oh boy, I hate glass phones so much. They are not only slippery, but they are also fragile and break really easily. If your phone vibrates while it's on a table, it can easily slide off the table. Elephone can't really change the material at this point, so we'll just have to make the best out of a glass phone. Elephone said something really weird on their Facebook page. They said the Elephone logo on the back doubles as a notification light. That's kind of weird. I don't know if the entire Elephone logo is an LED, but we'll see when we get the phone. However, there is one very good thing about the phone, and that is the size. This will be a truly bezel-less phone on par with the Galaxy S8 in terms of bezels. Look at the dimensions. It's going to be 154mm tall and 72mm wide and 8.4mm thin. I am absolutely looking forward to seeing how bezel-less this phone is, but 154mm is still pretty tall for a phone. Even my Mi Note 3 is only about 152mm tall. It will also use USB-C, and by the way, there is no headphone jack in both phones. The display on both the U Pro and the U should be the same. It will be a 6-inch flexible AMOLED display with a resolution of 2K. Now, did you know that officially 2K resolution means 2048 by 1080 and 2.5K means 2560 by 1440? And did you know that these AMOLED displays are not made by Samsung? Now, who else makes OLED displays? There's LG, but it's not them either. Have you heard of a company called BOE? Probably not. They make a ton of displays for companies like Xiaomi, Meizu, Oppo, and Huawei, but they're not very well known. However, they recently announced at CES 2018 that they will have a 75-inch 8K TV, so they aren't exactly an unknown new player to the market. The only downside I can see to using an AMOLED display is burn-in, like that fiasco on the Pixel 2, but that's still pretty rare nowadays. I don't have much to say about the audio here, except it's not a difficult part of the phone, but many companies cheap out on this, so hopefully Elephone doesn't cheap out on the speakers here as well. Now, battery life. Since we are talking about two different phones with different processors, most people would expect the battery life to be different. However, we are talking about the same battery size on both phones, and from what I've tested, I've used two Helio P23 phones now, and I found that generally the Helio P23 phones need about 33% more battery to get the same amount of battery life as a Snapdragon 625 phone. Now, when I tested the Xiaomi Mi Note 3, I actually found almost the same thing. The Snapdragon 660 and that Xiaomi Mi Note 3 needs about 35 to 40% more battery size to get the same battery life as a Snapdragon 625 phone. So I think the battery life on both the Elephone U and the Elephone U Pro will be pretty similar in both phones. To put that into perspective, my Xiaomi Mi Note 3 with the Snapdragon 660 and a 3500 mAh battery can get 10 hours of screen on time. So assuming Elephone doesn't mess it up, they can probably get the same thing. However, the higher end Elephone U Pro with the Snapdragon 660 does have wireless charging, which the normal Mediatek Elephone U does not. Let's talk about software. The Mediatek Elephone U comes with Android 7.0 Nougat, while the Snapdragon Elephone U Pro comes with Android 8.0 Oreo. And traditionally, Elephone has always left the phone completely stock, and let's hope they continue doing that because other companies are not. In terms of navigating the UI, swiping between home screens, accessing the notification shade, both the Pro and the non-Pro version should be quite fast. My previous experiences with Elephone is that software is usually very well optimized. However, the difference in performance will be launching apps, and this is where the Snapdragon 660 should pull quite far ahead of the Mediatek Helio P23. Gaming for both phones should not be a problem. You might have to bump down settings when playing intense games on the Mediatek, but they both should be okay. Elephone has released some Antutu benchmark numbers that are super confusing. They say they are able to get 80,000 on Antutu, but those scores don't match the Snapdragon 660 or the Mediatek Helio P23. So on the Helio P23, I got around 60,000, which is way too low for that 80,000 score, and on the Snapdragon 660, I got 110,000, which is again way too high for that 80,000 score. So I'll be interested to see what kind of benchmark numbers I get when I do get my hands on the phone. I usually don't talk about networks in my intro videos, but this is where it gets a little bit wacky. Did you know that the Mediatek Elephone U supports more network bands than the more expensive Snapdragon Elephone U Pro? Again, this is based on information provided by GearBest. There is a small chance they are wrong, but they are usually pretty reliable. If you get the cheaper Mediatek Elephone U, unfortunately you won't be able to get LTE in the USA because it is missing the most important LTE bands of 5, 12, and 17, which are the backbone for AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, and Verizon. However, you will be able to get 3G because you have the 3G Band 5. In Canada, you can get 3G LTE on all carriers except for Wind. Now in Europe, there is absolutely no problem at all because the Elephone U supports bands 3, 7, and 20, and this even works in Asia because there are a bunch of TDD LTE bands inside as well. Now here's the weird part. The more expensive Elephone U Pro supports fewer network bands than the cheaper Mediatek one. It's missing 3G Band 5, meaning that the Elephone U Pro will not work in USA at all, and it will not get 3G in Canada, only LTE. Still no problem for Europeans though. However, the Elephone U Pro does get NFC, which is pretty awesome. Elephone has chosen to go with a dual lens setup, and their setup of choice is like Huawei, one monochrome lens for capturing detail and one regular lens to capture color. In these dual lens systems, the software is super important to make sure you get the best photo, and Elephone has hired a software company called Arcsoft, who are experts in dual camera technology to help them optimize their setup. Elephone is definitely one of the better Chinese companies, so I don't expect their cameras to be horrible, but you know what, there's always a first time. I do hope 4K video recording is enabled out of the box for both phones, since it should be fully supported in the Elephone U and the Elephone U Pro. Again, I'm so excited for the Elephone S9 or the Elephone U. Many companies are making bezel-less phones, but their bezels are still bigger than Samsung, LG, HTC. They just can't seem to shrink the bezels down, or it's too expensive. Elephone will be one of the first companies to make a truly bezel-less Samsung-like phone with a curved screen, and I just cannot wait. If you want more information and pricing on the phone, click on the link in the description below. There is some pricing info on GearBest that suggests the 4GB Elephone U Pro will cost $390, which is really expensive, considering you can get the really good Xiaomi Mi Note 3 for $300 on sale. Oh, and guys, if you do end up buying the Elephone U or the Elephone U Pro, do not buy the 6GB version because it is a waste of money. There is no point. 4GB is more than enough. I will have an unboxing and review video coming out really soon, so make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the video. Do you think that the Elephone U and U Pro will live up to its hype? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.